Hello. Oh. Yes. All right. A friend told me that the rich know about this guru, this great thinker. And I says, I'd never heard about him. She says, oh yes, there are very wealthy circles that talk about him. I says, really? His name is G.I. Gurdjieff. And his work was first featured in Moscow. And his whole mission was to help the existence of man become awakened to its personal task of letting eternity come forward into the heart of man. Gurdjieff was an amazing, amazing person. As you're reading his literature, he's very difficult to understand. Again, here's the spelling. And the thing that I learn from this is really not abstract at all. And it's something that I want you to learn. In the desolation of the soul, man is going down a spiral of darkness, and he has to find a way to make that shift, make that turn. And that is the whole work of Social Alchemy Project, to engage with that one and primary, we say, is social transformation. We live in a very jealous culture, and Gurdjieff expands on this, that in the intelligence and power of every action and a deeply penetrating influence of scientific thought in modern life, there is something merely to be deplored, but more importantly, to be understood as the channel through which the eternal truth must first find its way to that human heart. And of course, the heart happens to be today's topic. One of the complaints that we're finding in the gay subculture, and it's not much of a subculture because it's a culture very much so mainstream and theme stream, is this parade of complaints that, quote, I am hurting, quote, I feel like shit. And that's involving the human heart and what each man for himself has allowed. Now, these extravagant exclamations on the heart are pertinent to women and children, including people, because it's definitely humanity. And as folks can see a lot of needy gay men, the conclusion is homosexuality makes people very desperate and lost. But so does heterosexuality if there's domestic violence and people aren't very happy in the relationship. So it's all relative, isn't it? And as gay law and gay democracy is making it possible to legalize same-gender marriage in every state, it was just legalized in France, and the UK has been signing a lot of documents. Australia has been on the right plane for a long time. And legalizing gay marriage is going to strengthen the heart of those that want to love and be loved. This is a very important point that I make. So in the human development of the mind, and creating that opening for the human heart and for eternity to reach one with true love, will have to be understanding of one's desire. And if their desire is to be with another man, so let it be. But it's hard to know when to say no, because for a man, and if you're a woman and you're offended, you can just turn this off, because we have to be very, very candid. The man and his cock have a mind of all its own. And here we have a lot of cock and culture research, right? The power of cock. It can be very dark, and it is not really helping people feel like there's any loyalties around, because once the man has pleased himself through a wham, bam, thank you, man type of activity, he moves on, and oftentimes in denial, and he is primarily associating with contacts that don't know how deviant he is being. In the sake that we go to complete our lives through media, media doesn't really want to apologize for a lot of the sleaze and a lot of the outrage of satanic forces. So we're left with spending money and gaining privilege. And spending money and having the privilege of money is really something that we have to hold in this physical world with great gratitude. And here we're leading to prostitution. Okay. If people are prostituting themselves, yeah, in every employment sector, every relationship, and gay men are allowing gay men to be so pervasive in this type of behavior, the social and behavioral sciences, from a scholarly perspective, have to really consider the complaints that we hear about the heart. People want to make you think they know where they're going, but they don't know where they're going, and they don't quite know how to handle marital issues, let alone their own dark secrets having to do with cock. And how this affects the heart is really a social and behavioral phenomenon. But it is not too late to change and to reach a higher level of intelligence within ourselves. As we do this, we consider our own desires and how this affects our hearts, and where we place our affections through heart-centered meditation. What are you spending time focusing your mind on? Happens to be things that we cannot deny. So, in a culture of gay sluts and a world of young prima donnas that want to generally enter slutology, the study of knowing how to be a slut, how the best way they have to suck cock and not make it a chore. Men are worshiping other men, and they are lovers of themselves. And the behavior is very elusive because it is all sex, and a direct cultural impact on society's greater problem of how society prostitutes the heart, and only it follows with tremendous ill treatment. And it makes people awfully desperate to be cheap and non-committal in their relationships and in all their business dealings. So we have to learn that through the heart, in cognitive science, we initiate a respectful credibility among gay people and, Lord willing, straight people as well. But there is a lot, and if people are offended by this terminology, that's too bad, because it's exactly what it is when we are counseling really tormented gay men, or even bi-curious men or straight men that think they might be gay because they just want gay men's money, okay, is that a goddamn lunatic cocksucker, dangerous crazy loser bitch mentality among men. We don't want to have men whining to get what they want in order to get their sex, and with men it is only with ugly hearts. It only affects the hearts. So we have to stand up for what makes the heart so hurt. Well, of course, it's this perversion of power. It is the vacillating in self-loathing and self-hate and self-possessed thinking that I want more. Because people are letting people get away with things, why cannot more be attained? People feel for themselves in the gay culture that the high-octane dick, if you don't mind me saying, is the very thing that gives them permission to gain power. This is a level of male-dominative culture, and men thinking that they can gain power with one another by showing off their assets and ultimately pleasing one another. In this, there is a satanic realm, what the power elite need to see as the larger picture, that through the dehumanization by mistreating one another through sex, it hurts the heart, and the larger society becomes used to seeing themselves dead through media, through the images in the mainstream news. And that we as a society, collective is what we call it, are ready to be dead ourselves, and we look forward to communist ruling. And this is all morbid as it sounds, but this is the facts. Dirty people are running the system, and it does not mean that the working class ought to be entering the type of dirty mental welfare of what the filthy rich have shown us that they've gotten away with, and many in the public sector have reason to believe they can get away with. There aren't people in the gay culture watching one another's back unless there's money and rubbing one another's egos to affirm how great they are because of money, looks, and of course, cock size. Like a woman comparing the size of her breasts with her girlfriend, it is the same issue that we find among men. This level of superiority ultimately damages the heart because it's based on sick bastards that are trying to get themselves pleased as they bring humanity down by tossing one another around through sex. Ultimately, they are takers because of their greed and corruption, have the patterns that have been created by many ages of men. Back to Gurdjieff. He states that man is an unfinished creation and is not fully man. He is cosmically unique, whose intelligence and power of action mirror the energies of the source of life itself. There's life in man's seed, and so when man ejaculates, he finds that it is a thing that creates family. If there's a woman, okay, and he can get her pregnant. And so when men are reflecting one another's psychological masculinities in a type of distorted thinking, the people do not care beyond feeding their own fat stomachs, because money is a motivator of what draws people in through sexual perversion. To have things taken care of so one can be a drunkard and one can go ahead and be lascivious and have no issues of the physical pleasures that they seek for themselves as it slowly eats at their heart. Money, erections, which I'm referring to sex, power, and the systems. It's like a rancher who hunts and feeds his friends by what he hunted, right? So then he shows the trophy of the head and he puts it on his wall. It's the same thing with men doing business with one another, having to do with this type of ill treatment of the heart. Now, people are not entirely ever content. And so what they want is they want to have things that they can be allowed to get away with. And as it's taking them to men that are leaders, they realize that they can do many things in the human interaction to get people and their money where they want it. And that means nude. It means in the bed. It means cock service. Men get lost in the sex, in the money. And the gay culture needs to know that it's at the expense of marriages, heterosexual bonds, girlfriends, wives, children, and ultimately even themselves in their closed society, which is very gay, very clandestine, and privy. People feel sorry for themselves because they're lost due to what they've given their heart affections to. And money makes people have self-importance. So does sex, as men are going toward men to be validated and affirmed through quick fixes. They are losing everything, and at the end, there is only despair, no gratitude for even the small things and the blessings in life, because they want more. So, in the eyes of Gurdjieff, what we want to do is reawaken man and his heart so that he does not misuse whatever sexuality he's been gifted by God. I think this is definitely a positive psychology when we have to do with men and their secrecy and what they think is okay to get away with. God bless you, as every man stands on his morals alone. I wish you the very best in your choices when nobody is looking. Ciao bella.